So I just saw Final Destination Bloodlines, and guys, this movie was somehow actually good. Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Final Destination Bloodlines, the 6th installment in the Final Destination series. I honestly can't believe they're still making these movies. Now I feel like I have to get something out of the way early to really emphasize my utter shock when it comes to this movie. So fellas, let me be completely honest. I've never thought the Final Destination movies were all that good.
What?
Oh god, I can hear the cult following screaming at me. The voices, make them stop! But yeah, I've been on the side of the critics when it comes to those movies. The only one that I even consider all that memorable is the third one, because I watched it when I was a kid and it made me severely afraid of roller coasters for years. And now I just watch it because I think it's hilarious. One of those so bad it's good movies, you know? I adore that movie, but not because I think it's actually good. So I should probably start by briefly explaining why I think these movies generally suck. For one, I think the movies kind of immediately lose all of their flavor after the first one because of their premise alone. You skip out on death, so death comes and hunts you down in outrageous and brutal ways. Okay, sure, but I personally feel like that idea doesn't go beyond a singular movie. Specifically because by that one, you already know that everyone is guaranteed to die and that there is no hope of escaping that outcome. So basically you're watching the movies just to see the brutal deaths happen, not to see the characters have a chance to win somehow. And for me, I feel like that isn't enough to make an engaging movie. If I wanted to just see the deaths, I could see them in compilations over the course of 20 minutes on YouTube or something. I don't need to sit there for 2 hours watching a movie that is entirely predictable just to see the gore. And obviously they add a different possible way to escape the cycle each movie, and sometimes they even reuse the same ones as previous movies even though we already know it doesn't work. But they never have a chance at surviving, so it always feels like a waste of time to me. And the situations leading up to the deaths got more and more absurd over time. So usually I find myself just rolling my eyes as I see the deaths approaching or laughing my ass off. God, that was a lot, sorry. So now that that's all out of the way, let's get into my review of the new Final Destination. Oh guys, and by the way, minor spoilers. Okay, so I've got to get this one out of the way first because it's something I was so impressed with and can't let myself forget to say. The cinematography in this movie was so creative and inspired, bro. I can't believe I'm saying that for a Final Destination movie, but I swear, right from the opening scene in the Sky Tower, I knew they were actually going to try a little more in this movie. There were so many unique shots, particularly with the ones that hinted at how the events were going to unfold. The camera movement was motivated and the editing was perfectly executed in a way that amped up the anxiety. And it isn't all just in the opening either. They keep up the same creative energy all the way through, with dolly zooms and other stylistic shots that naturally make you uncomfortable. The lighting and color grading of some of the shots are really good too. I never thought I'd have this many things to praise about these movies in terms of the actual shots themselves, but here we are. Something else that I really appreciate in this movie is how intentionally funny it is. I feel like we got some of this in the 5th movie, but it didn't really hit the same for me. There were so many times where I was legitimately laughing out loud in the theater because of the things the characters were saying and doing. And it was nice to be laughing with the movie instead of at it. There were just genuinely hilarious jokes scattered throughout the movie. And something in particular that I thought was comedic was that the characters are like super self-aware that literally anything can kill them since they're on death's hit list. So they constantly mention it or move super slowly and anxiously everywhere. For example, there's one scene where everyone freaks out as they walk into a slow-ass revolving door, and it's funny, but so real. Like, bro, I'd be scared too. And maybe I should have said this earlier, but I really like the premise of this movie. It adds a lot of freshness to the series for me. The whole random group survived and will get killed later thing was definitely getting old. But having death attack the bloodline of someone who wasn't supposed to be alive is pretty cool to me. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but generally speaking, I like this idea. The characters in this movie are pretty fun, at least the ones that say enough dialogue to be memorable. It's especially helpful that everyone is tied by blood. Adding a family dynamic instead of a friend and or strangers thing feels a lot tighter knit to me and makes the stakes feel a whole lot higher. And their relationships with one another was really believable too. It made it hurt a bit more knowing all of their fates were sealed. I was particularly attached to 2 of the brothers in this movie, Bobby and Derek. Mostly Bobby since he's like the sweetest person ever and I didn't want him to die. Derek was an asshole, but he was also kind of funny and his dynamic with Bobby was great. So I was naturally attached to him too. The protagonist, Stephanie, and her younger brother, Charlie, also had a fun dynamic. And it truly felt exactly how a brother and sister should feel. So yeah, generally speaking, I enjoyed the characters. The kills in in this movie were so well done, by the way. I swear, every time you thought you could predict how someone was going to die based off of the little hints that Final Destination is known for showing you, you couldn't. And as insane as this might make me sound, the deaths were all super cool and gory as usual, but the build-ups to them and the execution was pretty perfect every time. And the best part about them is this time around, while yeah, it did feel like death was interfering with the world a little bit, things felt significantly more believable than they have in a long time in these movies. It really seemed like all of the characters' tiny little mistakes led to their deaths, and not so much a sentient gust of wind or water led to everything. It made things feel more calculated from a writing perspective and less lazy. This is also the first Final Destination movie that I have ever felt anxious during. Never have I been so stressed about a character surviving in the entirety of this series until this one part. And I won't even go into detail about what that means. I will just say one thing: peanut butter. Tony Todd also had a pretty beautiful send-off in this movie. It really is a tragedy that he passed before this movie was released, but he played the hell out of his role and had a cool little plot twist involving his character. I'm not gonna lie though, the lines he said in this movie hit a little close to home, knowing that he actually passed away, which I'm sure was the whole point, but damn. I'm so happy to say that my list of positives for a Final Destination movie is so long. I really went in expecting to laugh at the stupidity of it all and was completely caught off guard a mere couple of minutes in. Alright, so let's cover the negative stuff now. So the pacing of this movie is absolutely insane. Like, the opening sequence is a nice and relatively long showing of the almost tragedy involving the Sky Tower. But then right after that, our protagonist wakes up from a nightmare, which happens to be the events of the Sky Tower, seeks out her family to ask about her long-lost grandmother, who was the person who survived the Sky Tower in her dream, finds her grandmother, and then people start dying. All of this happens within the next, like, 20 minutes. And the pacing is literally all gas, no brakes, the whole movie, too. People barely even grieve over their relatives because there's no time. It's actually insane how fast this movie moves after the beginning sequence. Because of the pacing, the characters don't necessarily all get the love they deserve. To be fair to the movie though, there are quite a few family members that are relevant to the plot, but I feel like if you're gonna introduce a ton of characters that are gonna survive for a while, or forever, then they should get just a bit more development. Hell, one of the fathers in the movie straight up disappears from the movie at some point and comes back at the end. And considering he was the one person left that was fighting against believing that death was coming for the family, I feel like he should have been given more attention, at least enough for us to see his opinion be changed in the face of too many truths. And speaking of characters, I feel like the lead wasn't too compelling either. She was okay, I guess, but she felt more like a device to move the plot forward than an actual person to care about. At least for me. The most compelling and human character in the entire movie was Bobby, which is interesting because we definitely spend less time with him. But I don't know, he felt more like a person than Stephanie did. Stephanie honestly feels like she only exists to seem crazy and get the killing started rather than to be cared about. I won't say if she died or not, but it didn't bother me much knowing it might be her fate. My last comments are more movie logic things. So basically someone saved a whole bunch of people in a Sky Tower because she had a vision about everyone dying and was able to get them out. All the survivors had kids and then their kids had kids, so death attacked both them and their whole bloodline. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Now what I don't get is why something as powerful as death took so long to kill everyone that there were 50 years of extra family members made. The movie just says there were too many people, so it was harder. What? Hello? Why is death so weak? And if someone just dies of a disease like cancer, is that death's doing too? I mean, logically, yeah, I guess it should be, but these movies have always implied that the escapees always die brutally rather than normally. But if Stephanie's grandmother, the one who saved everyone, stayed inside of this big spiked house she made for herself to avoid death's insanity, she would have definitely just died of cancer, which we learned she had during the movie. And that's another thing. Apparently this woman was able to learn all of death's tricks and like predict how it would try to kill her. I don't know about you guys, but that seems absolutely fucking impossible. There are just way too many variables and death is so random. I guess after the vision 50 years ago, she just got like super good at it. I should say that I was willing to suspend my disbelief for these things while watching the movie, but I sure as hell thought about it. Those were less negative opinions and more confused commentary. Overall though, this movie was surprisingly well made. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it actually made me feel different emotions that these movies have never really made me feel before. If you're a fan of Final Destination movies, I'm sure you'll love this one. And if you aren't, definitely give this one in particular a chance. 8 out of 10.